Here I am again post-game talking to you again, and I'm gonna mention turnovers. So our turnovers, got us in trouble.
Losing streaks by both the men's and women's team come at the wrong time as conference play is winding down.
Plus, Owl Sports Update's Jake Gabel is here to break down how the remaining AAC games can shake the conference up come tournament time.
And I'm Luke Meli, live from the Liacouras Center. With the men and women in the midst of 3-game losing streaks, I'll break down the turnover bug that's bit the Owls over the last 2 weeks. Courts in Session is live, and it starts right now.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Courts in Session. She's Emilie Cochrane, I'm Brielle.
And Luke Meli will be joining us live in just a bit, but first, a 9-point loss to the Memphis Tigers on Sunday dropped the men's basketball team to 4th in the AAC. Don't believe us? We've got the footage to prove it. Roll the tape. Memphis welcomed Temple to its very own FedEx Forum on Sunday afternoon, but it was not the Super Sunday the Owls were hoping for. After a missed jumper by Damian Dunn, Jameel Reynolds grabs the board and finds Nick Jourdain for the good-looking dunk. Memphis ball, Jaden Hardaway sinks the three right here, 1 of 2 on the day for him. Turnovers were main storyline in this game. Here's one by Caleb Battle. Elijah McCadden gets the steal and lays it in for 2. He chipped in 12 points on the day. Just under 4 minutes in the half, Dunn sends it to Battle for a deep 3, and his first of the day. You could tell he wanted that one for sure. After 2 minutes into the second, DeAndre Williams, fighting through contact, makes an easy layup to put the Tigers up by 10. Zach Hicks commits a second turnover here. Kendrick Davis gets the steal. He passes to Keontae Kennedy, who misses the dunk, but McCadden is right there, grabs the offensive board and puts it in for 2. At this point in the game, Memphis was scoring all over these Owls, but if we jump to the 8-minute mark right here, Temple makes a run. Jourdain gets an easy dunk to keep it close. Look at that. But 3 minutes later, the story changes once again. Williams hits an easy 3 to put the Tigers up by 9. The Owls defeat it at this point. Their 3rd straight loss, final score 86-77.
Here I am again post-game talking to you again, and I'm gonna mention turnovers. So our turnovers, got us in trouble, and they were careless. It wasn't that they were like full court, just pressing us, running and trapping. They were just containing us and keeping us in front, and we just had some just careless turnovers. Everybody's late on, our rotations. We had a stretch early on where we was really good, tops in the country defensively, and that's really slipped for us.
This 3rd straight loss drops the Owls to 8-5 in conference play. Caleb Battle once again led the team in scoring, finishing with 25 points. Battle has scored more than 20 points in each of the team's last 5 games. Heister Miller and Zach Hicks both finished in double figures with 15 and 12 points respectively. For the Tigers, DeAndre Williams recorded a double-double, 26 points and 12 boards. Lots to talk about in this one, Emily, but the first thing I want to point out, no Jaleel White in this matchup. He's the leading rebounder in American Athletic Conference play. Temple did get off to that strong start in the first few minutes, but then Memphis countered with that 11-2 run. And also, no one could stop the Tigers' DeAndre Williams. I said it before, I'll say it again. 26 points, 12 boards, and in the first half, 17 points on 7 for 10 shooting. And that was just in the first half alone, his 8th double-double this season. But then to open up the second half, Memphis went on that 8-0 run, which extended the lead to 18 points. Then the Owls tried to counter with that 16-2 run, and they cut Memphis's lead down to as little as 4. But then DeAndre Williams just really took over, and Temple wasn't able to come back. 11 turnovers in the first half. That's the key story of this game, Em.
Absolutely. Turnovers were definitely a significant issue in this game, but Caleb Battle had 2 of his own, but maybe it's because he had the ball in his hand for most of the time. I mean, he had 25 points in this game, his 5th straight 20-point game in these last 5 games. 7 of these points in this last game are coming from the line. We mentioned the importance of free throws in conference games, like we mentioned in that upset against Houston. They were so vital. His streak right now for free throws since this UCF game at the end of January is 34. He's made 34 straight, hasn't missed since the end of January. So although these turnovers were a significant issue, Caleb Battle had a great day offensively. All right, time to head over to the Liacouras Center to get some more thoughts on the loss. We'll hand it over to our good friend, Luke Meli.
Luke, that's 3 straight in the wrong column, and I know you see a familiar pattern.
Yes, the men's basketball team has a major turnover problem. The Owls are turning the ball over around 14 times per game. That's 300th out of about 352 D1 teams. And it's not something that just started during this losing streak. In the past 2 wins for Temple, they turned it over 17 times in each game. And that followed suit in the Memphis game. 16 more against the Tigers. All 8 Owls that played in that game turned it over at least once. 5 of the 8 Owls turned it over multiple times. And the biggest consequence of all those turnovers is points going the other way. Memphis had 24 points off of Temple turnovers in the game. It's something the Owls have to clean up. Now, on the bright side, Temple's been scorching hot from 3-point range during this losing streak. The Owls have hit at least 9 threes in all 3 games. That's something they had only done 6 times in the prior 23 games. So that's the glimmer of hope for Temple fans. If the Owls can shut down these turnovers, the 3-point shooting will allow them to compete with any team in the conference, as they've shown during the regular season. Now, that's all from me on the men, but coming up, I'll have more on the women's team and their matchup against Houston right here at the Liacouras Center. And reporting live from the Liacouras Center, I'm Luke Meli. Emilie and Brielle, back to you.
Thanks, Luke. While the men's team is preparing for a Thursday night matchup versus Wichita State, let's take a look at how the Shockers' Sunday game went against the Mustangs of SMU. SMU looking to snap a 6-game losing streak against Wichita State. The Mustangs haven't beaten the Shockers since 2018. The contest went to not 1, but 2 overtimes, with Wichita State winning in a nail-biter, 91-89. SMU's Zurich Phelps led the team with 26 points and also finished with 5 assists. BODG dropped 21 and grabbed 5 boards. For the Shockers, they were led by Kenny Poto's 28 points, followed by Craig Porter Jr.'s 22. Wichita State moves above 500 overall, while SMU falls to 9-17.
All right, here are some Shocker stats. They are 13-12 overall and 6-7 in conference play. The team chips in about 69 points per game, also averaging over 36 rebounds thanks to players like Craig Porter Jr., who pulls down just over 6. But on the flip side, the Shockers average just over 12 turnovers per game, which is actually less than Temple's, which is at 14. Lots of stats on the Shocker side, but what is your perspective on the Temple side of things, Brielle?
So Temple needs to limit its turnovers, as Luke discussed earlier, and they need to start getting the bigs the ball more often and just get them involved regularly on the offensive side of things. So I said it last week and I will say it again, get Jameel Reynolds the basketball. During Sunday's game, the big man only took 4 shots. He went 2 for 4 from the floor, and I would love to see Reynolds kind of get back to where he was against teams like Rutgers, St. John's, and other teams like that. Nobody in the American can match up with him in terms of size. He just dominates down low. And Caleb Battle, you talked about him earlier. He's just so talented. 25 points on Sunday, 12 of those coming from 3-point range, and like you said, 7 for 7 from the free throw line. Battle is shooting about 90% from the charity stripe this season. He's just such a difference maker with the ball in his hands, and he is someone you turn to when the team is struggling and needs points.
Absolutely. Now, on the Wichita State side, there's a trio of guys sticking out to me. Jaquan Walton, Craig Porter Jr., and Kenny Photo each had 20 points games in the last matchup against SMU. Porter Jr. is an incredible blocker. He also averages 12-plus points and ranks among other AAC leaders, 3rd in blocks, 8th in assists. Walton, one of 9 new transfers on the team's active roster, is averaging a team best 14 points per game. There it is right there. A sweet shooting stroke for him as well on the court. Overall, the Shockers statistically perform better on the road than in Wichita, but they also have one of the worst passing performances in the conference. The Owls are looking to get back into the win column. It's going to be important for them to put up points early and close out this game for sure. All right, break time. When we come back, we'll each pick a Valentine on the women's side because it's Valentine's Day.
Plus, we will take a look at how the women's team fared in its first overtime of the season. Stick with us. Welcome back. Saturday afternoon, the women's team hosted Cincinnati and looked to snap a 2-game losing streak. Tierra East hits the pull-up J to tie things up at 2 in the first. Michaela Walid misses the layup, but Perea grabs the miss and lays it in for the and one. Perea had 12 points and 7 boards. On the other end, Clarissa Craig backs down Tariana Gary, gets the bucket and the foul. Bearcats up 21-19. Lillian Nelson with the handles, and she hits the step-back 3 to put Temple back in front. Nelson finds Perea, and she knocks down the mid-range jumper. 2 minutes left in the fourth. Jillian Hayes knocks down a 2 and puts Cincy up by 3. But this game goes to overtime. The Bearcats take a 4-point lead and never look back. East had a huge block and 3-pointer in OT, but it's not enough. Owls with a few missed free throws and some missed shots. Temple loses its 3rd straight game. Cincinnati 74, Temple 76.
I mean, we still got to keep it up because, I mean, we still have games to play. So the locker room is fine. It's just a really tough loss, especially at home. It's just all about the next game. And, you know, when you go into tournament play, all that gets scratched off and everybody starts 0-0. So that's kind of just why I keep telling them, you know, we're going to go into the next game, we're going to win, and then straight forward.
The Owls did get off to a strong start against the Bearcats, and they were up 17-13 at the end of the first. Now, Temple gave up 21 points in the second quarter, but they were tied up at 34 going into halftime, so a pretty good performance. And the third quarter is typically where the Owls struggled the most defensively, but defensively they looked really good. They led 44-37 at one point in the third quarter, but then since he slowly started to crawl back, also got to mention Corinna Perea. She's played really well the past few games. Temple only having those 8 active players, so she's definitely had to take on a bigger role, shooting 39% from the 3-point line and just about 48% from the floor. So it's really been fun to see her produce offensively.
Absolutely, and Aaliyah Nelson and Tierra East pretty much carried this game, 19 points each. We give a lot of credit to Aaliyah Nelson ever since she stepped foot on Broadway. We've pretty much said she's the best player on the team, but let's give some credit to East. I mean, come on. She has scored in double figures in the last 6 games, averages 6 rebounds per game, and she's one of those players that can just move the ball so athletically. She has such an athletic composure about her, and I've watched her in practice multiple times. She plays the same way in practice as she does on the court when it matters most. So it's good to see that consistency, especially coming from a sophomore, but definitely love to see the improvement for some of these younger players as well. Now, both the men's and women's teams have lost 3 straight games. The women will be looking to get back in the win column when they return to the Leah Center to host Houston on Saturday. Tickets are available to purchase on owlsports.com, but if you can't attend in person, the 2 p.m. game will be streamed on ESPN+.
We can't forget about the 3rd member of our anchor trio who has been dying to talk some more Temple basketball.
There he is. About 8 minutes without some Luke Meli coverage. Lots of turnovers on the women's side. What you got for us this time, Luke?
Yeah, I missed you guys too. Yeah, the Owls welcome in Houston into the Leah Center this weekend with 2 goals in mind. Break the 3-game losing streak and get revenge on a Houston team that beat them down in Texas earlier this month. Now, Houston, the second-place team in the conference, didn't take it easy on Temple. They forced the Owls into a season-high 26 turnovers the last time they played. They did that with their vaunted full-court press and their relentless half-court defense. Aaliyah Nelson and Tierra East, the 2 Owls with the ball in their hand most of the game, combined for 13 of those 26 turnovers. Now, the other focus for the Owls is going to be defensively, stopping Houston's Layla Blair. Blair's the leading scorer for Houston this season, and she's the reigning AAC Player of the Week for good reason. She's coming off a 30-point performance in a win over first-place USF, and the Owls aren't strangers to Blair's dominance. She had 25 points and 5 threes against Temple the last time these teams matched up. And the Owls are running out of time to make these corrections. Only 4 regular season games remain before it's postseason time. Reporting live from the Leah Center, I'm Luke Meli. Emilie and Brielle, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Now, this is probably one of the hardest parts of our show. We got to pick a Valentine on the women's side, and this is difficult. This is going to be hard for us.
Now, Emilie, I would love to pick you as my Valentine, but for me, I'm going with Tierra East. She has improved so much since last season. And what sticks out to be most is that she's scoring about 4 times as many points this season as she is last season, which is just super impressive for being only a sophomore, and also pulling down around 6 boards per game this season as well. Huge improvement from last season, and she scored in double figures in 6 consecutive games. So Emily, who is your Valentine?
Give me Tariana Gary. I want her. You tried to steal it from me, but I want her this time. Listen, I have never anchored a show on a holiday. I'm really happy that it's today and I get to pick Tariana Gary because I can give her my Valentine and I can talk about her for days. She's great. She's a great person on and off the court. I mean, let's see. Her athleticism on the court is completely unmatched, from the way she moves the ball to the way she's so accurate on the court. I love Tariana Gary. She is my Valentine for sure.
And time for another break, but on the flip side, we will discuss if Temple has a chance at making if Temple has a chance of making a run come AAC tournament time.
We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to Courts in Session. Another show, another week for some play breakdowns.
It's the men's and the women's this time around. Take it away, Brielle.
Yeah, so in Sunday's game against Memphis, what you're going to see here is the Owls are going to make 5 passes around the perimeter before taking a shot. So Temple is typically a team that's like a one-pass shot, but they need to move the ball better, which is what they do right here. Hyseer Miller gets to Zach Hicks. Zach Hicks draws in 2 defenders, gets it to Damian Dunn, who also draws in 2, and then that leaves Caleb Battle for a deep 3. Beautiful shot.
Now moving on to the women's side, this is overtime right here. Play it right here. Maya Jackson on Cincinnati goes in for the layup, but gets completely denied by Tierra East. She's going to try to drive this one down all the way to the rim, but instead she kicks it out to Coranda Perea, pause it right here. She's already got a Cincinnati defender on her, so these two are actually going to switch spots. You can play it right now. Coranda and East switch spots, pause it. She's in the corner. She takes time to breathe before she takes the shot because she's got nobody on her. You can play it. She takes a deep breath, sinks the shot in to get down by only 1 point by Cincinnati in overtime. Now, a lot of breakdowns today, but we're going to send it over to another one for Jake Gabel over at the studio set. We'll send it over right now. Hey, Jake.
Hey, Emily. The men's 3-game losing streak has really hurt their spot in the standings. Temple was in sole possession of second place before their loss to Houston earlier in the season. The Owls now find themselves tied for 4th with Cincinnati. The top 5 teams receive a bye in the conference tournament, so Temple is still in a position to receive a bye. But the Owls' last 5 games of the regular season will be crucial. 4 of the 5 remaining games are against teams that sandwich them in the standings, playing Tulane, Cincinnati, UCF, and Wichita State. Now let's switch over to the women's side of things. Diane Richardson's squad fares slightly worse than the men's team. They're sitting in 7th right now with just 4 games remaining for the Owls. They might need to win all of them if they want a chance at a bye. Now that we know where Temple lands in the standings, if I just invite myself on over, why don't we talk some more AAC basketball?
Let's do it, Jake. Come on over.
I will kick things off. Jake, do you think the men's team can make a run in the AAC tournament? Or are they going to be a one-and-done team?
It's so hard to tell this season. They've had the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. I mean, the win against Houston, the win against Villanova at home, and then you had losses against SMU, Wagner, games they really should have won. If I had to pick one, I think the team's going to have to go one and done because they haven't won a single conference tournament game ever since Aaron McKee's become head coach.
Absolutely. And this next question goes for both teams. What do you think the most important remaining matchup is for both the men's and the women's side?
I'll start with the men's. I think the Tulane game is the most important for them. Tulane took them out of the tournament last year, and they've just really struggled against Tulane for the past several seasons. And also, Tulane's 3rd in the conference right now, so that last game of the season, it's on the road, it's going to be crucial for them. Switching over to women's, I think that Houston game, the next game that's coming up, is the most important. They're 2nd in conference right now, and I mean, an upset would be huge for the women's team right now that's been struggling on that 3-game losing streak.
Last question for the women. Obviously, University of South Florida is going to be a March Madness team, but is there anyone else in the American that you can see making the tournament?
I think ECU has a fighter's chance. I mean, I really like what they've done this season. ECU went 11-18 last year. Now they're 17-8. They haven't had that much change over this season. Danae McNeil, their best player, she went from 8 points per game last season to 17 points per game this season. So watch out for ECU. They might be able to make a run in that AAC tournament and maybe make March Madness.
And Jake, so far this year, what is a game that's really stuck out to you in conference play?
I have to go with the SMU game against Temple. That losing that by 1, that was brutal for the Owls, the men's team, because that game, it just really dropped their hopes down, especially after that heartbreaking loss to Houston.
Absolutely, Jake.
Thanks, Jake. Break time. When we return, time to get a closer look at devices that can be life-saving in medical emergencies for all athletes, including those at Temple.
We'll be back with more information on that right after this. Welcome back to Courts in Session. In early January, Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills suffered a cardiac arrest during a game against the Cincinnati Bengals. It took a team of medical professionals to save him. That in addition to a small device called an AED. Here's how both basketball teams prioritize these small devices as lifesavers. It's hard to walk along the halls of any Temple athletic facility without seeing a little box hanging on the wall, spelling out the letters AED.
Some people just don't even know what they are.
It's short for Automated External Defibrillator, an easy-to-use medical device that can save the life of someone who has gone into cardiac arrest. Temple has 19 varsity sports with more than 600 athletes, so it's no surprise AEDs are easy to find.
User-friendly tools that are small enough to fit in most places, and having access to them is like literally life-saving.
Stay calm.
These devices received national attention when one was used to save the life of Damar Hamlin, a Buffalo Bills safety who collapsed during a football game against the Cincinnati Bengals.
I watched it live, so it was scary.
A scary situation that many athletic trainers must be prepared for. Both the men's and women's basketball teams have trainers who have access to over 20 AEDs within Temple facilities.
Obviously, cost goes into that a bit, but you can't really put a cost in saving someone's life.
Both teams have AEDs on site whenever they have a ball in their hand. It's important for all people to know how to use them as well. But more importantly, they need to know how to listen, because this device talks directly to you.
You have instructions given to you by the machine. CPR is not always known to save lives, but AEDs can.
It could save, your child's life, your husband's life, your friend's life by just having access to one.
These little boxes aren't just hung up for show. Temple's athletic trainers are equipped to save not just the players' lives, but anyone who suffers a cardiac arrest. Thankfully, an AED hasn't been used at Temple in over 20 years for either the men's or women's basketball teams. But just in case a cardiac arrest does occur, these trainers are fully staffed and always prepared to handle it.
Both the men's and women's teams have upcoming games. The men welcome in Wichita State on Thursday night for a 7 o'clock game, and you can watch that on ESPN+. For the women, Houston comes to town for a Saturday 2 p.m. game, and it will be aired also on ESPN+. We will see if both teams can snap that 3-game losing streak. On Thursday, Jesse Dimishluve and AJ Patel will be back on the desk for our flagship show at noon on TUTV. Jesse and Jay's Big Plays will return to the air, and I'll be joining them on the anchor desk to do some AAC talk. And we'll take a look at the newest member to Temple's athletic staff. The Owls have added a dietitian to the roster.
I always tell teams, what works for your friend, what works for your brother or sister might not work for you.
That is all the time we have for today's episode of Courts in Session, and happy Valentine's Day to all who celebrate.
For Brielle Berry and Luke Meli at the Leah Core Center, we know you're over there. I'm Emilie Cochrane, XOXO. Have a lovely day.